preservation through beer. If you didn't know, well, let me start off by telling you there's a lot more going on inside of this bottle than just beer. Beer was established 9,000 BC. And it was invented by some Egyptian ladies who happened to actually not just brew the beer, but also started the breweries of some of the first businesses in the history of mankind. Later on, some English evangelicals were cruising through, doing a road trip through Jerusalem, found some beer, brought it back up to the Roman Catholic Church, and a particular king and several monks said, you know, if we added hops to this, we would not only improve the flavor, but we'd actually help the preservation, and they were right. Monks dig beer, if you didn't know that. And so not only did they do that, they put the beer into caves, and that created a longer brewing process, or a fermentation process, but lagering was invented, so again, monks. Later on in England, about the 1500s, the English said, let's just take all our flotsam and jetsam and religious whatnots and let's put them on a boat and send them far away. And so they did, and those people wound up in New England about December when it was really cold. They said, God, let's get off the boat. Why would they do that? Because they'd run out of beer. And in 1587, the first European beer was brewed on American soil. And so here comes Coors, here comes Miller, here come all the big breweries, and still following a regional kind of you know, you're seeing seasonal beers, and if you're in these regions, you get wheat beers, you get other kinds of beers in other regions until Prohibition came along in 1920 to 1933. We had 1,400 breweries prior to Prohibition. At the end of Prohibition, 160 had survived. So that's like 10% for people who need percentages. And it was a tough time. I mean, breweries were making basically beer ingredients without making beer. And how they survived, I'm not totally sure, but come 1933, they were able to crack the lid open because of these valuable Americans. And when that happened in 1933, what you saw was 160 breweries go, we've got this whole landscape, we are going to start making beer for all these people. And so what was going on at the time was a rationing on malt and a female workforce that again had stepped up because of World War II. So they brought about the yellow kind of beer, unfortunately. And because they thought that was what was going to sustain them, and it did up until about, well, beyond 1978. But Jimmy Carter came along and said, you know, we're going to repeal that one thing that said you couldn't do homebrew because we don't need that anymore. And so as a result, home brewing took effect, and as a result of that, the microbrewery revolution began. We have 1,400 breweries in the United States right now, 76, 100 actual breweries, and because of that, you're seeing Oregon being ahead of the trend in terms of moving back to a prohibition regional market or model for providing beer, and we're seeing seasonal beers come back, and we're seeing people take a renewed local interest in drinking beer. It's transformed me, not just here, but it's transformed me because now I'm not like, you know, Coke versus Pepsi. I'm not label dependent. I'm going, I want a new beer. Of all those beers, if one's new, I'm going to buy that one. And that's a different model compared to how most people buy Budweiser and other things like that, which I think is good. It's the American melting pot on display. Drink that. So, I mean, on that note, we're seeing innovation, we're seeing a lot of diversity in beers lately. If you don't drink beer, whether you do or not, know this has affected you because we're seeing a lot of different kinds of beer out there. And it's brought forth, and you can go to Newport Market tonight and buy a beer that's brewed in a brewery that's 500 years old. Actually more than one, probably 3 or 4. That's a business plan right there that goes beyond just thinking about, what are we going to do next year for profits? I mean, that's collaboration, that's sustainability, that's something that if we had money, we'd invest it into if we had it. So, I mean, I encourage you all to think a lot about, you know, can that model serve us? I mean, I think the open source community and technology has that served them a little bit with some of the open source technologies, but I mean, could that work for airlines, or could that work for banking or real estate? I don't know. It probably couldn't, but that's why I drink beer. And I guess I want to leave with this point right here. Is this glass half empty or half full? It doesn't matter, because I'm going to have another beer.